All right, we're live in the I Own It Studios today. We're back in Laguna Beach, and we just keep rolling downhill with great guests. And today is just no exception.
Sorry, Ben. Can we get a restart?
Yeah, we can get a restart. Hold on
Go
one
for it.
second. We're live in Laguna Beach, California at the Ben Reinberg I Own It Studios, and today is no different. We just keep rolling downhill with outstanding guests, and today is no different. I'm really excited to talk to this young gentleman. He's wildly successful. You see him all throughout social media and all the accomplishments he's had from at a young age to date. He is the founder and chairman of Capital Research International. He is a coach, a consultant to Fortune 500 executives, professional athletes, Navy SEALs, best-selling authors, and Hollywood luminaries. And he was recognized as a top 100 entrepreneur from President Barack Obama. Jason Capel, my friend, it is so good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ben. Glad to be here and hope that I can live up to that awesome intro.
Yeah, you will for sure. So let's get right into it. The story behind changing your name is very powerful and moving to me. It's the story of your grandfather, your basketball and dating businesses at the time. Could you share the story with my audience?
Absolutely. Yeah. So when I was 20 years old, I started my first online business from my dorm room at Michigan State University. And it was teaching basketball players how to basically get better at basketball, get recruited, play college like I had. And so that business did well from the get-go. And that was, great being 20 years old. And so fast forward a few years after that, I'm basically done playing basketball. I want to get rid of the business. I find a seller and I sell the business to them. At the time, that business was called Alex Morocco Basketball because my legal name is Alex Morocco. And me being young and I read the contract, but maybe I didn't read it enough times. I basically figured out that they had bought the brand name Alex Morocco Basketball. And so in all my other ventures, I'm like, man, if I start these new ventures under the name Alex Morocco, people are going to Google that name and they're going to find my new stuff and they're going to find my old stuff. And my next business was becoming a dating coach for men. And so my thought was, okay, so if I'm like Alex Morocco dating coach and people search that, and there's also 12-year-old basketball players searching Alex Morocco basketball, this 12-year-old is going to learn how to pick up his teacher, and then he's going to be on the news because he slept with his teacher, and it's going to be my fault, right? And so I'm like, I need to do something about this. And so at that moment, my thought was, I think I need a stage name or a pen name for my dating business. And my hesitancy with that was that my name meant a lot to me. The name Morocco means a lot to me because you go back in time to 1943 in Amsterdam, and World War II is going on, and Hitler and the Nazis are making their way through Holland. And my grandpa lived in Amsterdam with his parents. He had a brother, he had a sister, and he's 17 years old, and he's at school. He's actually studying to become a doctor. He comes home from school, and the front door is open, and glass is shattered. There's food still on the table. Food is warm. No one's there. He goes into his parents' room. Drawers are knocked over. They're missing. Sister, everyone's missing. And he knows what's happened. They've been taken and they're gone. And he could probably never see them again. And if he goes and looks for them, then he puts his own life at risk too. And he doesn't know what to do. And so he ended up going in hiding for 2 years. And he lived in the chicken coop of an attic of a farmer who took him in, survived on something like 1 to 2 inches of bread per week for 2 years. He literally didn't eat so little that after the war, he could never tell when he was full again. So he would eat as much as possible, and he had no sensory experience of what it felt like to be full again after that. And so the whole point of that story is, he ended up meeting, his wife. They moved to Detroit, Michigan. They had a son. That son's name was Eli. That was my father. And so that name survived. He was the only one who survived out of all of that. And so I had this whole thing growing up of, I want to bring that name back. I want to bring it back to what it was, because my great grandfather, before he was killed, he was the chief cantor in Amsterdam. Right. And so he sang for kings and queens, and he was going to come to the US and sing for the president one day. And so I wanted to bring the family name back to that. And I'm like, man, I got to change my name now. And that was tough for me. And so I actually had a conversation with my parents about it. And they basically gave me their blessing. And they said, whatever you need to do, you do. It's not about the name. It's who you are and how you represent yourself to the world and how you represent our family. And that was all I needed. And so that was when I changed the name to Jason Capital. And that was almost 10 years ago now.
Do you believe changing your name impacted your identity in more subtle ways and the course of your life?
Yes. it gave me a blank canvas to paint with that I did not have before. I think that human beings are very sensitive to the expectations that other people place on them. Most of them don't have a strong reality, and so they don't have boundaries. And so what you think of me is who I have to be instead of who I think I am. And so I had a lot of that growing up. And when I changed my name, it was, well, there's a bunch of beliefs and all kinds of stuff associated with the container called Alex Morocco. But when I change my name, I have a brand new container over here, and there's nothing in it. I can fill it with whatever I want and be whoever I want to be. And so I'm not saying that everyone listening here needs to go and change their name, but it was helpful for me.
What a great point. I'm sure your grandfather will be so proud of you right now with what you accomplished. And I think it's outstanding. You are outstanding at building personal brands, both for yourself and like a client like Jay Shetty. How do you approach the topic of personal brands, and what are some of the key things you advise successful people to look to enhance their brands?
Great question. And I want to say I do not take credit for Jay's brand at all. He is brilliant, and whether I was involved or not in anything, he was going to do amazing. So when it comes to personal branding, there's a few rules that I always keep in mind, especially if someone's just starting out and they're listening. One of them is that volume wins. Right? It's free to post on social media. And so everyone's a perfectionist about it. They don't want to post until they love it and it's perfect. And then when they do post it, and if no one likes it, they delete it. Right? And so they don't get enough repetitions in to find out what they're good at and what they're not. And so volume wins. It's free to post as much as you want. Get the bad stuff out of the way so the good stuff can come through. Another thing with personal brand is perfect fails. And that kind of goes along with the volume wins, is that perfect fails. If you're trying to be perfect, then you won't produce enough content to establish anything. If you go to, for instance, go to Gary Vee's IG and just look at how many posts he's made, and then look at how many you've made and go, well, of course, if I'd posted 18,000 times, I'd probably be better at content than I am right now. Right? So it really is a volume game, and they've lowered the bar to 0. Anyone can create an account. Anyone can post. It's free to post. There's no reason why you shouldn't go crazy with it. A couple of years ago, we started doing, I did some private consulting with D-Rock, who is Gary Vee's producer. Not me helping them. I hired D-Rock to look at our stuff. And one of the first, which by the way, is a high recommendation for anyone, because just having him on a Zoom call with all my video editors and my team, it reset their standard for how hard should they be working? How much content should they be producing out? And this was 2 years ago. He was posting 100 pieces a day of content. He goes, Gary, we post 12 on IG and 8 on Facebook and 6 on LinkedIn and here and here and here and here. And we're posting two times a day or 3 times a day. And we're like, what the fuck are we doing? Right. Like, we need to get our numbers up. And so it was when we had that, really talking with D-Rock shifted a lot of things in our company and how we run our editors. And things started growing really quickly from there.
Well, thank you for that. By the way, if my media company is listening, I agree with Jason. So let's step it up, folks. It's Jason Capital just laid it down. So let's get to work here. So what are your favorite kind of clients? Aside from a good product and a checkbook, you want to make sure they can pay. What are some of the important qualities that clients possess that help you drive success?
Not to sound like a dick, but the best clients are the ones who just do what I say, by far.
So coachable. They're coachable.
There's the politically correct way of saying it. Yes, okay. Thank you. Yes, 100%. They're coachable. They're compliant. I say they do, and it's not like a domineering type thing. It's that I've been doing this a long time. And if you want to change the light bulb in this room, then you're going to have to do that, because I have no idea how. I'm not good at it. I don't know. But this is what I think about 24 hours a day. I've thought about it nonstop for the last 14 years. This is all I do. And so I know what works here, and let's not make it harder on ourselves than it needs to be. Let's just do this. And so the ones who are coachable, I love the most. The ones who implement, I love the most. The ones who they score really low on vanity and really high on experimentation. Those are my favorite ones. Because if I get someone in and they're an influencer and they're really concerned about how their audience thinks about them and looks to them, and I'm like, I want to do a post where you do this and you say this and it's going to generate leads in this way. And if they're like, well, I don't like how I'm going to come off in that way, I don't want to do that. Well, then I'm like, I don't know. You signed up for me to help you increase your revenues and profits. This is what we're doing. So if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But you should have told me that before we started, because This is how it works. And so the ones who prioritize vanity and what the audience thinks over what the spreadsheet says and what the bottom line says, I'm not a huge fan of those clients.
So you're more about the data, not about, don't worry about how you look, don't worry about the exact message. Let's follow the data and reflect our posting and stories off of what the data really shows.
Yeah, 100%. So we've a saying in our company, which is let the calculator decide. It's not
Love
me.
it.
It's not you. What's the
Love
calculator
that.
say? Yeah, let's
Oh,
just
that's
go with that.
beautiful.
And
Beautiful.
so, like, to give you an example, um, in the last over 2 years, I have looked at my Instagram less than 10 times.
Really?
I don't even go on.
Wow.
And the reason is because I have all the data I need in a spreadsheet. And so I don't need to, like, if I need to look at a post, I can look at a post, but I'm not logging on to see what's happening. I have all the data I need in a spreadsheet. I want to make all my decisions based on that. I think that when people log on to any app, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, whatever, there's a shift in their brain that happens and you become a different version of you. We all have multiple selves and a different version of you comes to the surface. If you're on Instagram, you might come with like a more emotional, I just want to like escape for a little bit kind of attitude, which is fine. But I'm not going to make good decisions in that space. I'm going to make much cleaner decisions if I'm looking at a spreadsheet. And so it's as much to protect my thought process about what decisions we need to make as it is, just trying to be objective.
And does every client, is this how you're measuring, just straight metrics? You establish metrics with them and then decide, okay, how much this is this is your expectations of performance, and I could reflect back on the data. Is that how you work with a client?
That's exactly how we do it. Everything
Okay.
is spreadsheet, everything is shared, and it's all data driven.
So what is it about digital marketing you love, having had so many successful online businesses and agencies? Do you believe it's more learned skills versus natural talent?
That's a good question. I've actually never thought about that. I think with the clients we've had who have been the most successful, when they come to us, they're already good at speaking. That's a common pattern that I see amongst all of them. They're good on camera and they're good at speaking. They have some level of charisma. That's just going to give you an advantage on social media. There's just absolutely no way around it. And if you go outside the marketing world, just look at the biggest names, a Mr. Beast, a Logan Paul, a KSI, any of these people, they're incredibly charismatic people. And so that's just an advantage. If you're going to build a brand on, like, you need that. And can that be learned? I think yes, to an extent. You can develop your speaking skills, you can develop your charisma, but there's a certain it factor that the people need to have. And I think like a Logan Paul, for instance, or someone like that, if this is 30 years ago, I bet you he's still incredibly successful. He's just doing it in Hollywood on the big screen instead of on, the little screen on your phone. Right. And so I think the cream is always going to rise to the top no matter what. And so I don't think certain things can be learned in that way. I think those guys just have an advantage, girls too. To go back to your first question, though, as to why I like digital marketing so much. Growing up, there was always a barrier to entry for whatever I wanted to do. For instance, like playing basketball, right? You got to make the team. I was cut from the team at first, so you got to try out, you got to get better. There's someone else who makes the decision. If you're on the team or you're not, you get to play or you don't. That's not my decision. That's the coach's decision. With digital marketing, there's no coach, there's no regulator, there's no decision maker. I can just start right now. I can say what I need to say. I can start my business for a couple $100. It's the greatest time ever to start a business and be an entrepreneur. And so what do I love about it? I love that part about it. There's no one telling me what to do or what I can or can't do. But the other part is I can, like, I don't know what your backstory is like, Ben, but I've never had a job. Growing up, I saw my dad get up, go to work every day, put on a suit. He was an attorney and he liked parts of it. He didn't like other parts of it, but just seeing that every day, he comes home late, he's already tired. I'm just like, I don't want to do that ever. And so I've been fortunate I don't know what it's like to have a job, but my guess is that it's not as good as, wake up and then your commute to work is 8 feet to your office. Like, I don't think you can beat that.
I agree with you. I mean, I've never had a job. I've never received a paycheck. And so it's one thing I admire about you. The other thing I admire about you is comparable to me is you know how to take action. And that's so important in life. And you have been consistently doing that over the last decade and a half in your career. And it's incredible to see because it's inspiring because that's how I live my life. And it's nice to see someone shoulder to shoulder with me who's taking action and I love it. Keep doing it. So I love the distinction you made in one of your videos. Okay. And I wanted to ask you this question between self worth and net worth.
Mm.
A lot of ambitious people struggle with the difference, Jason. Can you share more about how you view success and how's that different than self worth?
That's a great question. So I define success as this. I wake up in the morning. I ask myself, what would I like to do today? Can I do my answer? If the answer is yes, then I'm living a successful life. If the answer is no, then some things have to change. And so self worth versus net worth. For the longest time, and I think that a lot of people in my generation get this mixed up as well, because we grew up on the internet where if I type in Ben Reinberg, I bet you the next Google suggestion after that is net worth. If I type in Jason Capital, because that's what we search. That's what we were taught to search. And then there's these fake websites that are like, oh, this person has net worth of this or that. Like the website has absolutely any idea. And so growing up, I never really knew what net worth was. We're not taught that in school. I remember a couple of years ago, I had a conversation with Sharon about this. And I just asked him, I was like, how does it actually work? Like, if someone has $100 million net worth, does that mean that in all their accounts, if you add it up, it's 100? Like, how does that work?
No.
Yeah. And he's like, no, of course not. He goes, if you want to use a back of napkin, he goes, do this. How much liquid could they get for all their assets in 90 days? He goes, that's roughly probably what their net worth is. And so once I understood that, I'm like, okay, well then it levels the playing field a lot, because you realize that a lot of people keep their net worth. It's not like I have a coach, and he works with really high net worth individuals. And he's done well for himself. He makes a couple $1 million a year as a coach, and he's working with one of his clients, and the client is, worth a few $100 million. He's an equity guy from New York. And my coach, Brent, tells him that he keeps $1 million as an account at all times as like a peace of mind type thing. And this other guy who's worth several hundred million looks at him and he's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? He's like, what do you mean? He's like, Brent's like, how much do you keep? He's like, I don't know, 50 grand. He was like, what? But you're worth $300 million. And he's like, yeah, but it's not in cash. That would be foolish. That's not how you play the game. And so there's just all this stuff about financial literacy that people do not learn. And because they don't understand, especially people in my generation, they just take on other people's definitions for them. And they hear net worth, net worth, net worth, and they just conflate that with self-worth. And they think it's the exact same thing when it's not at all. To me, self-worth is kind of a proxy. It is an indicator of how everything else in your life is going on. If I feel good about what I'm doing, if I feel safe in my world, if I'm not being a perfectionist, if I'm aware of my wants and needs and I'm making them known, but I'm not acting needy, like if I'm working on my other stuff in my life and all that stuff feels pretty good, then my self-worth is going to be pretty high. And if that stuff is triggered and it's not doing well, then my self-worth is going to be low. So to me, it's kind of like an indicator of just how am I doing?
What a great point. Well said. It's absolutely correct. I mean, I feel your self-worth is so important. If you have a great self-worth, it will transform into a great net worth if you really work hard. So thank you for sharing that. Your website has an interesting breadth of mentors. I know you brought up your current mentor. Are there any business mentors who you've taken a personal interest in who have been particularly valuable to this growth you've incurred?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm sure like you, like I wouldn't be here without the people who helped me
Absolutely.
at all. And I'm super grateful for them. There's a guy, Joel Marion. I don't know if you know who Joel is. Very, very helpful for me in my early career when I just started. He taught me a lot about email marketing. There's another guy who's still out there now named Taki Moore, who is awesome. You should have him on the show. He's a great dude. He's been influential in my life. Sharon has been incredibly helpful for me. And that's been the last couple of years for me is Sharon's help with me, because in my 20s and even the last couple of years, I've been really good at making money, but I was never taught and didn't understand, well, how do you multiply that money and what do you do with it? And am I going to have to keep working and for the rest of my life to create cash flow, or is there better strategies I could be deploying here? And so Sharon is giving me a financial education that the school system never did, that is going to make my grandkids wealthy, in ways that would have never happened otherwise. And so hopefully he sees this and he likes that. But yeah, the mentor stuff is huge, man. I've also been blessed to find really good virtual mentors. I find certain books I come back to all the time. In fact, I think it's right Yeah, right over my shoulder. The
What?
Ayn Rand's The
Oh,
Fountainhead
okay, sure.
is right there. I've read that book, I don't know, 10 times or so. So just certain influences like that are really important for me. The book stuff is interesting. So one thing I'll share that hopefully will be helpful for someone is I would rather someone find the 50 best books and read those over and over than keep trying to read the latest, greatest from the New York Times bestseller list. I think that can be profound for people because I don't know how it is for you or for others, but when I read a book the 8th time, it's a very different experience than the 2nd time. And each time I'm just picking out different things as layers of the onion get peeled back.
I agree with you. I mean, I'll read a book and then I'll read again, and I say to myself, "Man, I just missed that point." So you learn things. It's like even documents in my business. I'll look at a document and it's just the lens is different sometimes
Mhm.
because your mind maybe is not focused on something, and at that point in time when you reread something, you might pick up something you didn't see. That's how your mind works. So I love the core values you list on your website. Okay. We have core values in my business and your core values for yourself and your business. Talk a little bit about how you put one of your core values, which I love. It's one of my favorite things. I highlighted it was radical honesty. Okay. Into practice. Are there times that's been a challenge for you?
That's why it's a core value. Yeah, of course, it's been a challenge for me. I grew up in a household where it's like if you imagine a circle and half of them are positive emotions and half are negative. Those negative ones, those aren't allowed here. We don't talk about those. And so that was how I was raised, and I had to unlearn a lot of things related to being transparent and radically honest with other people. What I've learned though is that it has to come out at some point. And so if I don't talk about it with you now and I just let it fester and it just goes on, all I'm doing is wasting time where it's inevitably going to have to come out later anyways. So why don't we just deal with it right now? I love this Jordan Peterson quote where he says, conflict delayed is conflict multiplied.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, let's not delay it. Let's just have it out right now. There's good communication frameworks that we can use so that I don't offend the crap out of you and you don't offend the crap out of me. But like, let's just be radically honest with each other. And I think we'll both be much happier as a result.
So the lesson here is if something's festering you or bothering you, instead of burying it, which I used to do when I was younger, is let it out. Have the conversation, have the tough conversation if you have to, because that's what's good for your mind. That's what's going to heal you instead of leaving it in and causing stress. And hopefully, at that point, if you're holding it inside you, that causes health concerns and issues.
It totally does. Friedrich Nietzsche had this idea. I don't know if it's true or not, but he had this idea that he was a dark character, right? And he had this idea that human beings like to inflict pain on other people. And when you create a civilization where that's outlawed and you can't do that, that desire doesn't go away. It just turns inward instead. And so censoring yourself is a really good example of what you're talking about here, where you just turn the pain inward and you take it out on yourself. A really good way, a framework that I use when I need to give feedback to someone that they might not want to hear is simply it goes like, when I hear you say this or when I see that you did this about that, I think, and then you share your thought, right? So I might say, like, for instance, Ben, when I heard you say this thing here, I thought I'm not being appreciated. And about that, I felt sad. And in the future, what I would like to do is if you could do this instead of that, and that would mean a lot to me. And then that's it. Whether you want to take action on that or not, I can't control you. I'm just sharing my reality with you. And if you're receptive to it, that tells me something about our relationship. And if you're not receptive about it, that also tells me something about our relationship. But I've stated what I need to say in a way that doesn't make you feel attacked. Because if someone feels attacked when you're sharing this stuff, the guard is up and the information's not getting through anyways. You may as well not even have the conversation, right?
Yeah. That's a great point, and it's a great way to communicate where you're not polarizing someone. Like you said, you're not putting them down. You're sharing how you feel and how you want to be treated moving forward. And that kind of releases like all these thoughts you had in your head, like, and that stress, like, I don't want to confront this person, but that's a beautiful way to do it. I love that. I'm definitely going to look at that in the future. So your story of broke to millionaire by 24, I think is very powerful, especially for our audience. We have a lot of entrepreneurs. I have 3 kids. I got 2 in college. I got 1 in high school, and they're thinking about potential career paths. And when I think of them, I also translate to your success, and I think of them as well. And what advice do you give to young people and who don't really know exactly what they want and or how to become an entrepreneur, what kind of advice can you give to young people on their career paths?
The first thing, and I'm sure you see this too, man, is that they put way too much pressure on themselves to be successful. And that you can thank social media for that. I have a video where I'm like, you're 21 and you don't have a Lambo. What the fuck is wrong with you? you know, well, guess what? 99.99% of the world doesn't have that at any age ever. Right.
Right.
And so they're constantly comparing to the top 0.001% because that's what gets the most views on social media. And it's just not realistic. And so stop putting all the pressure on yourself would be the very first place to start. The second thing I always recommend is that you should taste from the buffet of life to find out what you like and what you don't. Because if you just, I'm going to do this and I'm going to stick to this path and this is all I'm going to do. Well, when you're 21, 22, when I was 22, I didn't know myself that well. I didn't really know what I liked and what I didn't at all. I kind of unconsciously moved towards those things, but I wasn't aware of what those things were. And so I think you need a lot of experience with a bunch of different things, get an idea of what it is you like, you don't like, what you're good at, what you're not good at. And then probably talk to some mentors or people who are ahead of you and where you want to be and get their advice about what do you think I should do? Talking to experts, talking to people who are down the path of where you want to go is the best shortcut that I know of for solving any problem at all, ever. And so I think they should do more of that than they already do. And I think if they do those things, they're going to be good. If they want to make money and they want to be an entrepreneur, that's great. Being an entrepreneur is super fun. It's also super fucking hard and it's super stressful. And you deal with all kinds of risk and loneliness that the normal person never goes through and will not understand. And so you need to be very clear about being an entrepreneur is not posting pictures with your car. That's not what this is. And so you need to make sure that you're ready for that. You want to do that because I'm curious what you think, man, but I don't think most people are cut out to be an entrepreneur, and I don't think that they should be. And I think that it causes a lot of issues when someone who's not cut out for this sport tries to play this sport.
I agree with you. I think it's tough to be an entrepreneur. It takes a certain bread. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 8 years old. I sold cigarettes, Marlboro cigarettes in a bar. And I made a lot of money and it was cash. So it was a beautiful thing. What I did was I bought a carton of Marlboro Reds from a pharmacy when they used to have local pharmacies, the mom and pops. And it was in Highwood, Illinois, which had the most bars per square foot. I would buy a carton. I would go into a bar because anyone could walk in. And remember those cigarette machines, you used to pull the handle. So if it was $1.50, I would sell a pack of cigarettes for $1. And I'd undercut it. And that was my job at 8 years old. So that's why people at my office make fun of me because they see a Marlboro sign, which is a representation of my first job, because I'm big into health. I'm a health nut. And so people always make fun of me. I think it's interesting. But one thing I admire is your entrepreneurial spirit. You take action. You constantly work on yourself. What do you do for personal development? Because I'm big into personal development. I know you're always constantly learning and working on yourself. Share with everyone, what does Adjacent Capital do that can inspire people?
So I always have coaches. There's been times in my life as an adult where there were phases where I was like, you know what? I don't need a coach. I'm good. Like I got it figured out, and then 6 months later, some shit happens. You get super triggered and you're like, oh, I need to talk to someone. And then you work with someone. And after the first session, you're like, why did I ever not do this?
Right.
So I always have a coach and someone in my corner who I'm paying to help me because they're going to, the saying is, if you're the one inside the bottle, it's hard to read the label. Right. So you need outside eyes and someone who can help guide you in those ways. So I'm always investing in coaching at all times. Currently, I work with a coach, the guy I was mentioning before, who works with CEOs, and he's been amazing. He calls what he does therapeutic coaching, which is just a really cool reframe to get CEOs with big egos to pay for therapy is really all it is. But it's incredibly helpful for me. And he is a really cool process. His name is Brent Charlton, if anyone wants to check him out. And he has a process that he uses that he calls the core issues matrix, where it's kind of like people can Google it, but you'll be able to see it. He basically says that there's 4 core issues that we deal with. There's worth, safety, perfection, and needs. And those are the only 4 issues. And then associated with those, people aren't going to remember this, but I'm just saying, associated with those are 3 ego states that people go in and out of: child, teen, adult. And that's it. So there's 4 core issues, 3 ego states, and you can plot it on a piece of paper and you can go look at your behavior and you can figure out where you're getting triggered in one of those core issues or one of those states. And once you know what that is, you can just do what he calls a correction, and you actually kind of scoop that that gook out, whatever suppression you have going on that's causing the triggering. You can scoop it out, you can get rid of it, and it's gone. And so there's situations. So for instance, like in my relationship, right? I've been with Natalie for 9 years. We have a great relationship, but there were things about me that I couldn't show her. And I felt blocked in that way. I do the work with him. We identify those. It's like a couple hours. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I can have this conversation with her and I can talk about it. And it's not like here we go. It's just like, yeah, okay, we can talk about this. This is totally normal. And so the biggest thing I've learned from him is that most people are actually in a triggered state, like 95% of the time. Not triggered in the way social media uses it, like, oh, you got triggered, but triggered in like, there's an emotional reactivity that is dictating your perception and your decisions right now. And you are in that state so much that you don't even know it anymore. And the biggest thing he showed me is that when people are triggered, usually their inner child is literally triggered, right? And so to keep it simple, if your inner child, let's say, is triggered, your child is actually running the show, not you. And if you're an entrepreneur and you're deciding how much you're going to pay somebody, right? And you're like, well, I really want them to like me because your child is thinking that, you're going to overpay them and you don't even know why you're doing it, right? And so the line he uses is like, you have a 7-year-old running your business. It's not going to end well. And this is the reality for most people. I have a friend of mine, I will not name his name because it's not a pretty story. Him and his partner owned a company, very successful company. They did about $100 million a year top line. They had a 60-40 split. They had a buyer come in. It was a DTC brand. It wasn't a great sellable business, but it was sellable. Buyer come in, offer them $156 million for the business. Great. This was their whole goal, right? One partner, I think, gets like 88. The other one gets like 62 or something like that. And my friend, when he saw that his partner was getting 88 and he was only getting 62, he killed the deal because his ego and his triggering could not handle it. That same company did not sell. Pandemic hit, hurt the company. They sold it recently for 1/10 of what they were offered before. Why? Because of the triggering. If he had just solved that, that triggering cost him, over $100 million.
Wow. What a great story that is. So for Jason Capital, what's the next big milestone you have planned?
Oh, damn, I don't know. I'm going back to Puerto Rico next week.
Well, here you have with 3 companies, consulting, speaking, living in Puerto Rico. Anything else you have ambitious planned?
I'm doing for fun. I'm doing a side project right now with Natalie, actually, which I think is cool. Basically, what we wanted to do was, I was like, all right, what's our monthly nut just for life, right? Okay, cool. This will be fun. So let's take our monthly nut and then let's figure out how many short-term rental properties do we need to passively cover that monthly nut, because we don't have that right now. So we're going through an Airbnb course right now. We're working with an Airbnb coach, and we're just going to start building that up a little bit. And it's a side thing, but it's something we're doing together. She's great at real estate, which is nice for me. So I don't have to fucking read all the contracts. And so that's actually exciting for me. That's like a fun little project we're doing.
That's great. Well, I love real estate. That's why I live and breathe commercial real estate. So if Natalie ever wants to call me and bounce a question off, my door is open.
Awesome,
so
man.
We're all works in progress. And the name of our show, and the reason why I have you on, is because you own it. You own your behavior. You own what you eat. You own how you act. You own your life, Jason. And that is so important to create success and health in your life. Was there ever a time in your career or life you said, I don't own this? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't handle this. Go back to that moment and share with us. Where were you at when that happened?
That's a great question. 2016, I went to a Dan Pena seminar. Have you seen Dan Pena online?
Yes, I've actually been to his seminar as well.
Oh, dude, I had no idea. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm at the castle, and you have your 1-hour session with Dan right before dinner.
Yes.
And one of the things he told me was that if you're going to grow your company, you need everybody under one roof. And so I'm like, I guess I got to get an office, because at that point we were all remote. So I come back to Newport Beach and I spent a bunch of money with the Irvine company, and I got an office right across from Fashion Island. You know exactly where it is.
That's where my office is now. 620 Newport Center Road, baby.
Oh, dude, I was 500. I was right next to you.
All right, cool.
That's so funny. And so I get the office, I get the team, I get everyone in there. And the very first day, I'm like, I don't know why the fuck I'm here or why I'm doing this. I don't know what to do. right? I really don't. I'm not a good leader of business, of employees right now. I don't know why they're here. I don't know what to do. And in fact, they keep coming into my office, interrupting me, and I don't know how to deal with that either. And so instead of owning that, hiring a coach, getting the help, what I did was I just went home. And I said to all the employees, this office is for you guys. You guys can use this. I'm just going to work from home. And if you need anything, hit me up on Slack. Obviously, I'm around. And I basically rode that out for a couple of years until I moved to Puerto Rico. And it wasn't a good situation. And if I were to do it now, I would be a lot smarter about it. But that was a situation where I had someone like Dan Pena who was very helpful in a lot of ways, but I didn't have the wherewithal to take the information I was getting and go, all right, what is useful and what is not? And instead, I just listened to all of it and I didn't own it. I abdicated to him and let him decide what was going to happen. And I shouldn't have, because honestly, getting in office, it was not the right move for my company at the time.
He would say next.
or
stop, he'd yell. Stop crying, you pussy, and get back to work. He taught me a lot of great lessons, so I'm very grateful for.
When did you go?
I'm trying to think. I think I went probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I was interested in meeting with him to talk about different avenues for bringing more equity into our funds and our deals. And he gave me a lot of great advice, and I still, and some of the tips he's given me, I use them today. So it's been good. And he's a fascinating guy. I see him on social media. he's got that fire in him like no one else, and it's wild. He's going to live till he's like 150. I think he's just an animal. It's amazing to see.
He is amazing, and he was made for social media.
The man goes viral. He was cutting edge. When I was at the Castle Summer, I was watching him do YouTube videos. I had no idea what he was doing. I'm like, I wasn't on social media, and I was like, this guy's amazing. I mean, think about it. Like, he was like cutting edge. He was like all over YouTube and doing videos, and he was smart. Like he realized, he's like, I'm an influencer, and I don't know, like back then if they were even calling him an influencer, but he definitely is. Talk to me about one of the things you've taught in the past. I thought is really interesting, that helps people with confidence and walking in a room and with business or developing relationships, is a concept you teach called high status. Mm-hmm. And talk about high status, and what is it, and what does it mean to you, and how does it impact others when you have that type of status?
So we all have this, I used to call it an invisible detection mechanism, which is just a really fancy way of saying unconsciously, when we meet someone, we have certain feelings about them and we don't know why, but we can sense it. When a girl meets a guy, she knows right away if I could ever date this guy or not. When a boss meets an interview candidate, he knows right away, or she knows right away, if would I hire this person? Like, we make these snap judgments, whether it's right or wrong. It's what human beings are doing. And we don't know why we make them, but we can just tell. And what it actually is that person's status level in that moment. It's that everyone is broadcasting a signal to everyone else about what their status level is. And if the signal that you are broadcasting is one of high status, doors open for you. People call you lucky. Things just always seem to work out for you. People defer to you for some reason. People respect you for no reason. They just kind of do. And if you're low status, everything I just said, you get the opposite. And life is not good. And you're constantly angry and upset and feeling fear and probably blaming the world for everything. And what's cool about status is it's not your Lamborghini. Like, how many of us have seen someone pull up in a Lamborghini and then, a giant geek walks out, or someone super meek, or someone timid, or whatever. And all of a sudden, all that respect you had is gone, because we don't really care that much about the Lambo. It's about the person. And what's cool about status is the way it's signaled is unconscious, and it's through your sub communications, meaning it's not what I am saying, it's how I'm saying it. What is my tonality? What is my body language? What is my eye contact? What is the general vibe that I'm giving off? And all of those things are within your control. And so if you can just tweak those things a little bit, you're going to start getting different responses from a prospect, for instance, but you didn't have to change your script. You just changed how you were showing up, and then everything changed.
Does that go with your mindset, but also your physiology? What are some of the tricks that you could teach someone to develop high status? Like, just a couple items. I'm sure there's a lot, but just a few.
Yeah. So the thesis behind it is that it's easier to act your way into a new set of beliefs than to believe your way into a new way of acting. Right. And so instead of you sitting there in front of a mirror doing affirmations, I am powerful, why don't you just act powerful, and then the beliefs will actually follow, right? And you look at like Dr. Amy Cuddy stuff, the power positioning stuff and power poses from Harvard. She found this biochemically, when you change your body language, your biochemicals, your physiology actually changes with it. And so like really simple tricks that someone could have is like, how are you standing? Right? When you stand, are you kind of like hunched over, and are you trying to not like take up space, or are you owning, to name, with your show, right? Are you owning your space? Are you taking up, you're not encroaching on someone else's space, but are you taking up your own space? With your eye contact, are you able to look someone in the eyes, and not in like a Charles Manson kind of way, but just like in a, I'm here present with you kind of way? Am I being afraid of this moment, or am I in this moment with you? And then your tonality, right? So like base level stuff, there's 3 types of tonalities that we talk about. There's rapport seeking tonality, neutral rapport, and breaking rapport. And so seeking rapport, it goes up at the end, and it's like, so what do you think? It's like what do you want to do? Like, it goes up. Neutral is it just stays the same. It's like, so what do you want to do? Right. And then breaking rapport is actually signaling higher status, because you're so high status that you don't need rapport with someone else, is the unconscious signal that's being sent. And so breaking rapport, it would be like, it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And it goes down. And so just by changing the tone, words stay the same, the response is different.
Oh, that's great. Good stuff. What's the best way to engage with you and keep in touch?
Instagram is the main place where I spend the most time. So it's just at Jason Capital.
At Jason Capital. Sounds good. Well, we're going to wrap up with our 3 questions, and I've been waiting to ask you these 3 questions. So the first one is, in our studio in Laguna Beach, we have a couch. You can't see it. And I said, Jason, lay on the couch. And how old are you now?
I'm 33.
You're 33. I mean, still young, incredible ahead of you, a future. And at 33, okay, you can roll back, and you're 33 now, but you can go talk to your 16-year-old self. What are you telling yourself that you learned that you can say to your 16-year-old self, do this, and here's what I want to share with you?
My 16-year-old self was afraid of the world and afraid of everybody and rejection and what people would think. And so honestly, if I was talking to him, I would tell him like, it's okay. Like, it's totally cool. I know what you went through. And so I know why you are the way you are. And it's okay. And I just want you to know, like, I'm super grateful for you, like my 16-year-old self, because even though he was afraid, even though he was shy, even though he didn't have friends, he worked his ass off. He locked himself in the gym, and he just worked and he worked and he worked. And so while I didn't get a lot of the spoils of being a teenager that other teenagers did, I developed a work ethic that almost no one else had. And so that work ethic became ingrained as a part of me. And so at 33 today, and everything that I've done, I would not have if he hadn't gone through what he went through. And so it's like, dude, it's going to suck for you, and I'm sorry about that, but like, you're going through the fire and you're doing it for me. And I really appreciate that.
Oh, that's well said. That's awesome. It's your last day on earth, God forbid. You and I are sitting down, we're sharing a meal. It's your choice. What are we eating together?
An endless, bottomless bowl, right? So that the meals can keep coming out and it never has to end. It's probably
okay.
What I would say.
Nice. What do we watch? What's the drink of choice? What are we washing it down with?
Some Cabernet for sure.
Oh, I love that. That's beautiful. I'm a big wino, so I'll roll with that.
Nice.
So in our studio behind me, we have a drum set, we have a grand piano, and we have 6 electric guitars. You're sitting in the studio, and by the way, next time you're here, you have to come to the studio. We'll do another episode, because you have a lot of knowledge and value that I think is tremendous for our show. So if you could have any band or musician play a song for us in the studio, they could be alive, they could be deceased. It's your choice. Who are we bringing in? We're sitting here, you and I, and they're playing us a song. Who is it, Jason?
Oh man. I would just go with the Beatles. I don't think you can go wrong with the Beatles, man.
No.
Oh, yeah, man. I would like to see that.
That would be wild.
Who do you pick?
Who do I pick? I like Metallica. I like all different types of music. I think Michael Jackson would be pretty cool, just to sit at the piano and watch him play and sing. I think would be amazing too. We've had all different some people say Elvis. There's just so many that would be a treat. Just so it's just for me, it's like endless. I love music, so
If
it's
we
all
could
good stuff.
get somehow, because I know that this is a fantasy question, so we may as
Yeah,
well be
of course.
limitless. If we could get the Beatles and Eminem to do a song together, I think that would be amazing.
That would be amazing. So, uh, I'm very grateful that you came on the I Own It show. Thank you for all the knowledge that you're dropping on us. If you are interested in following me, go to benreinberg.com. If you want to learn about commercial real estate, go to alliancecgc.com. We are the leaders in medical and veterinary office properties throughout the United States. Feel free, if you're interested in investing in our brand new fund that will invest in medical properties, feel free to log on our website. And for all your real estate needs, feel free to take that content on our website and learn more. Jason Capel, I want to thank you. Great to see you. What a wealth of knowledge, and keep rocking.
Dude, thank you so much for having me, man. This was awesome.
All right, man. Hey, are we off the air? Okay. So